There are 4 profit levers that most builders never pull. And today, we're going to cover all 4 of them.
My God, you sounded like Jimmy, Mr. Beast from Beast Games introducing the final episode of Beast Games. Have you seen that yet?
No, but maybe I got a future on YouTube. All right, so the easiest way, it's kind of like a no-brainer, but the easiest way to make an extra 6 figures in your business is to
stop losing money.
Yes, 100%. So most people's building companies are a little bit like a bucket with holes in it. There's leakage through the marketing, through the sales, through the pricing, through the variations, through the labor tracking, through the subs, through the materials, through the negotiations with the merchant.
Yeah.
Fuck, the list goes on.
It does. It's just, there's so many opportunities, and it's like, well, where should I start? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as business owners is overwhelm. And I should be doing this, and I should be doing that, and I should be doing that. And you can get in this anxiety, overwhelm, paralysis by analysis. And it's like, well, shit, I just got to figure what out of those holes are the biggest ones that I should plug first? What are the big dominoes? And asking what is the 80-20 is the easiest way. And someone really needs to come up with, I don't know, like a list and a checklist of all the things broken down by category, what you're saying, like suppliers, marketing, sales, labor hours, that you could go through and check off and go, yeah, we are doing that. We are doing that. We are invoicing our variations every week. We have worked out that we negotiate with our merchants every 90 days, and here's how we do it. Do you know anyone that's developed something like that?
Rings a bell.
And ideally, said person would have put like 200 to 400 of their, say, building company owners in a room and across the world, and then got them to put forward their best strategies.
This is becoming a little clearer to me now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then imagine if they compiled that into a checklist and you could actually go through it and spend 10 minutes going through it to identify what you should do, and then had some step-by-step strategies on how to implement those.
Crikey.
Would that be helpful?
It would be very helpful. Where can I find it?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to make that a download available to you in this actual episode.
Perfect. Man, you really are the best, Mr. Santa.
Thank you. And I think that over the last 21 years of coaching building company owners and general contractors and being exposed to 2,500 building company owners across the world is that we interview the people and we put them in a hot seat every month, the people who are doing great things. And we get their IP because a rising tide lifts all boats, and our industry is notoriously tight-lipped.
Yeah.
And by interviewing our members for who's hiring VAs, who's got a great process for training their apprentice, Richard Fiskey, like how did you build a $10 million plus business in a small town, in 2 small towns, and win 56 Master Builders Awards? And then we interview him. He takes us through his org chart, what I'm looking for in a great general manager. And being able to extract those lessons, let alone when you put 100 people in a room and you focus them on a task.
100%. So I love it. If you want that download, you're going to listen to the end and find out where you can get it from.
Oh, yeah. Delayed gratification.
There you go. So I've just got back from a couple of different events, and the big conversation ongoing is like, how do I get more revenue? How do I get more leads? How do I get more jobs? And ultimately, that's actually a fundamentally incorrect discussion and approach to growing your business, because we shouldn't be growing revenue, you should be growing profit.
Exactly.
Revenue is insanity, profit is sanity. What we want to do is we want to identify these 4 levers and how they can apply to you so that you can work out that you're not just building a revenue machine and a big business that gives you no profit, keeps you up at night, roller coaster cash flow, incredibly stressful, robbing Pete to pay Paul, going from job A to job B and then working out where job C is, hustling, muscling, and jazz handsing it through the pipeline, and then ending up with some work to keep everybody busy, but ultimately you're on the hook for all the risk liability and there's no money for you.
Exactly. And the first of those levers is to price for profit. So price your projects to a target margin of at least 20%, ideally 25%. So we want to get booked out 6-12 months in advance with work at 20% plus.
Yeah.
Then when the next project comes in, you're not desperate to get it because you've got plenty of work for you guys. And you're not having to compete on price just to win a job to keep you guys busy. You might target the next one. You can cherry pick. Great. Well, this is in the right suburb, the right area, the right kind of type project and skills for my team. I'm going to price that at 22%. So then the next, you're raising the level of the lowest bar that you will
Yes.
take on a job at 22%. So then you get booked out at 22%. You cherry pick those ideal projects. You dial in the team on the project management. And it reminds me of Mark. He was consistently underpricing his jobs. He hadn't factored in his overhead. He hadn't recovery margin. He hadn't factored in his project management fees, materials, or time and travel. And once he began, we helped him dial this in, and he began pricing the jobs at the correct target margin that covered all his overheads and gave him his desired profit. Then life became a truckload better. And now he's booked out 12 months in ahead. He's got work at 23%. He's brought on board 2 extra crews, and he's actually been able to hire a full-time office manager, and he's brought his, I was going to say wife back, but he's brought his life back. And his wife is stoked as well, because when he gets home at night, he's not like, oh shit, I've got to make sure that the guys are ready to go on 37 Smith Street tomorrow, because the office manager is helping
Yeah.
get a lot of that admin done that he used to do at night.
100%. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. So they're not pricing the job, they're pricing to win the work. And they're pricing based on what the competition is doing, which is ultimately ends up going to be a race to the bottom. You're going to exclude your overhead recovery margin. You're going to exclude your transport costs. You're going to exclude so many of the things that go into running this. And it's going to just end up coming out of your bottom line ultimately.
Yeah.
So either the client pays for it or you pay for it, or the scope of work changes, or you don't do that job. It's up to you. But I would rather go out of business at the beach than doing somebody else's dream home.
100%. Better to go fishing than to go broke. And one of the fundamental problems that we see of almost probably 85% of members coming to us is confusing markup with margin when they're pricing a project. So if you have a project that costs you $800K in terms of cost of sales, so labor, materials, and
So think of that as cost to you.
subcontractors. You got to figure out, well, how do I price this to make sure that I hit my ideal project target margin? So if you were to price it at, do you price it at 850, 900, 950, a mil, 1.1? What do you price it at? So if we were going for a target margin, we reverse engineer that of, let's say, 20%. Then the project needs to be priced at $1 million. So what we do to work that out.
So just clarify, the cost to the client is $1 million and the cost to you is 800,000. That leaves us with a gross profit of 200,000, which as a percentage of the cost to the client is 20%.
Exactly. So 200 divided by the cost of client, $1 million, gives us
20%. Sorry.
Exactly. And the markup is 25%. But what a lot of people do, if you've got a $100,000 renovation, they will put 20% on it, and they'll price it at 120, and they'll think, great, I've got a 20% margin, but that's actually a 20% markup. And so that 20 grand as a percentage of the 120 is actually only 16.7%. So now you're having to work a truckload harder to make the same amount of money. This is why a lot of guys who don't understand their numbers get into trouble, and they think, shit, I've been stuck on the treadmill. I'm working harder, but I'm just not getting anywhere further because I'm on the builder's hamster wheel.
Yep, 100%. That's why margin is the most important number in your business. As a business owner, your job description, your job description is gross margin. It is improving your gross margin via pricing, positioning, sales, and marketing prior to a job, and then during a job, controlling labor, materials, subs, and variations. Now, as a reminder, that's your job description, but you're not a busy builder, you're a business owner. So you solve this via people and process. So you might have a pricing process. You might have a positioning method. You might have a sales and marketing pipeline, right? So it's not you having to hustle, muscle, and jazz hands these 8 levers. It is you stewarding this via people and via process. It's the most important number in your business, your gross profit margin.
Exactly.
All right, what's lever number 2? Are you a business owner running a residential construction company? If so, save the date. On Thursday and Friday, May the 22nd and the 23rd, we're running our Builders Summit at the Park Hyatt in Auckland. It's the biggest business summit for building company owners in the country. Across 11 expert sessions, we'll show you exactly how to either tweak or overhaul and transform your business into a profitable, streamlined building company. You'll get access to breakthrough strategies that have already helped over 3,000 of our residential members grow their businesses. Plus, just by being in the room, you get over 25 $500 in extra bonus resources that you can implement into your business. We've got 100 seats. Many of those are reserved for our members, but you might be able to claim one of the few remaining. What you need to do is go to www.builderssummit.co.nz or click the links below and we'll take you directly there.
That would be labor hours versus forecast hours. So need to know, be able to back cost in real time and to get within 5% of the labor hours broken down by stage so that the team on site can course correct in real time. The foreman or site super can take ownership, control, and autonomy of the site and own it like it's his own business. And then the team know, cool, this is the score. Here's where we're at. The toolbox meeting happens today. It's Tuesday. We're doing the framing. And we had forecast 100 hours for the framing. We're at 60 hours, but we're only halfway through. Okay, what do we got to do to pull back those 10 hours over the next couple of weeks? Otherwise, no one is getting their bonus.
Yep. So a lot of the time we've spoken about this in one of our previous episodes about labor hours and versus the forecast. And ultimately, like the quickest way to improve your labor efficiency is to not do anything different other than whack up accountability, right? So just like Grant, he increased his project profits by 27%, not by implementing a phenomenal system or software or anything crazy. It was by whacking accountability up, by doing daily stand-ups, toolbox meetings, showcasing the scorecard, making sure that everybody knew what their roles and responsibilities were on a weekly basis, making sure there was a foreman incentive scheme in place, and then a toolbox reporting meeting every single week. And then the visibility leads to accountability. Right?
Absolutely.
So it is visibility, expectations, and feedback. Rather than the feedback being at the end of a project, it's now happening daily. Rather than the visibility being like, oh, did we win, lose? I don't know. Like, do we make money?
Exactly.
Yeah, win well. It's like scorecard, super visible. And then the expectations are really clear. Here's what you're doing every week. Here's what we're doing every day.
Exactly. And so when you ask your foreman, are you winning or losing? His number one KPI might be to be within 5% of the labor hours per project. He's like, yep, I'm at 3%. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Peace of mind.
Pretty much. Awesome. All right. Lever number 3. What is the biggest? This is the biggest profit zone for many building companies.
Yes. So one of our members in Sydney, let's call him Dave because that's his name. He started with us and he
No shit.
here to help. He started with us. He was doing 1.5 mil and he had struggled previously with his business. That hadn't gone well, and that's because he didn't have good financial visibility on his numbers. He was taking jobs on word of mouth and they did great work, which is fantastic in busy times. But when the tide goes out and things are a bit quieter, then it's not so great. So we helped install the right marketing systems to make sure that he had a good sales process dialed in to convert those leads. And then we started winning jobs and just started increasing the pricing. And he was able to win jobs at a high margin and get booked out. And one of the biggest things was his project management. So he does high-end renovations in Sydney on the northern beaches. And he was able to bring in his projects at an average of up to 24 to 27% GP and win the jobs at 21 to 22. And he's getting that increase in variations or increase in margin by capturing all the variations, training his foreman on how to understand what actually constitutes a variation, get them invoiced, priced up, and signed off by the client and invoiced every week. So he's able to actually increase his profits significantly by having that really dialed in with his team on site, rewarding the foreman for capturing them, having a great contracts administrator, which is actually a critical role that he's been able to build his company now, 2.5 years later, to 8.5 mil, and he just focuses on his area of genius that he loves.
And it's not, many people might be listening to that going like, oh, so he's underpriced the job and then introduced variations later, and then the client's like, fuck, well, I kind of got to pay them. That's not what's happening here. He's training the foreman and the project manager to identify and not miss variations and to upsell and to sell the client on extended works through the project. So there's nothing weird or niggly about it. It's just actually a high-performing site crew identifying where things could be better, what the client actually wants, and then selling them while they're during a job. And if they don't want it, that's fine.
Exactly. And it's framed up at the beginning of the contract or when the job starts that, hey, any variations or change orders that are different to the plans, different to the contract, we're happy to discuss them with you. We'll price them up and we're happy to do them and we'll invoice them to you each week, and so that there's no nasty surprises. If we don't go ahead with them, then we'll still need to invoice you a small fee, $250 or $300 as an admin fee for the office staff's time to price it up, talk to the suppliers and subcontractors. And if you don't go ahead, that's okay, but we're just going to invoice you for the small admin fee. Makes sense? Cool.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Financial lever number 4, the biggest variable between building companies and the biggest variable to your profit.
Absolutely. And that is to control your work in progress and your labor efficiency. So controlling work in progress means that you know exactly where the company stands financially at any stage. And you've factored in that the plumber has actually done 85K's worth of work that he hasn't invoiced us for yet. And so that 84K goes against your P&L, and you know where those costs sit at any one time. You have a true and accurate reflection of how the project is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then labor efficiency is pretty damn obvious. We've already spoken about making sure that it's really tight. And again, comes back to accountability. Often a very simple system of the daily stand-up can work really well. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but 4:57 every day, a time that everybody remembers. What'd you do today? What are you doing tomorrow? The apprentice ain't going to show up to that meeting every day 5 days in a row and say, I ain't done shit and I've got no idea what I'm doing tomorrow. They're either going to get off the bus or they're going to start showing up in front of their peers saying, this is what I've done, 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 and here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Oh, I could pick up the materials on my way home.
Exactly. You, as the owner of the company, hold the highest standards of the business. And by raising the bar, putting in place systems, training your team, and letting them know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, you'll build a far greater business that helps you achieve your goals.
100%. So just like Luke, who's been able to raise his prices by 15% while actually increasing conversion.
But I thought clients they're not happy to pay higher prices and that they just want to always go with the cheapest option.
Well, if you look out on the road, there's not the cheapest car everywhere. So
this is true.
People will be making decisions on what's best for them. And normally those big concerns are going to be timeline, budget, trustworthiness, quality, and communication. You introduce variables other than price, and people have variables to go off other than price.
Exactly.
You introduce just a price, then race to the bottom, how sharp's your pencil, and I'm ultimately going to go with the number that is the smallest.
Exactly, because they don't have anything else to assess you against. And not everyone wants to drive a Daihatsu. And typically this is the biggest investment of people's life. And so they've got 4 key questions that they're thinking. Who are you? Who's your company? Can I trust you? And how specifically can you help me? So if we can answer those in the marketing, there's plenty of people out there who drive Range Rovers, Porsches, Holdens, Cadillacs, etc. that want a great trustworthy builder who does high quality work and who is in their local neighborhood.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so let's do a quick little roundup. Margin, the number one most important number in your business. We need to price for profit, not to price to win the job and go out of business. Secondly, we want to track our labor hours versus our forecast. We need to give a scorecard and we need to make sure that our guys are aware of where they're at within ideally 5% of the forecast. We need to capture and control variations. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of a job, not charging for them, then having to go to the client and almost negotiating down the work that you've done because you don't want to smack them with a 60 grand extra bill for variations. And then lastly, work in progress and labor efficiency. How do we make the labor as efficient as possible and how do we control our work in progress? So we've got a tool for you to download if you've made it this far. The link is below and you will be able to use it, download it, plug your numbers into it and find where your hidden profits lie so that you can work on what is going to be most beneficial for your situation and your stage of business.
Exactly. Go forth, multiply, and make more profit.
All margin matters.